7 months into sharing a sunlit Chicago walk-up with Daniel, a guy who liked to call himself aggressively straight, I managed to spill coffee, laughter, and eventually, the truth. He found out I was gay when my phone lit up with a message that said, "Call me when you're home, love. Everything shifted after that ping. Not in some dramatic TV way, but in a quiet, echoing kind of way. Hearts change, softly at first, then louder. Doors open, old fears wake up. New kindness moves in. If your chest tightens before hard conversations, this story is a hand on your shoulder and steady and warm while we walk through what came next. Please tap subscribe, give this video a gentle like, and share it with someone who might need a calm voice today. Turn on captions, pour yourself some tea, and settle in. Your comments help others feel less alone, and your presence here truly matters. Thank you for being part of this community. I'm Daniel. I was 29 when it began, living a tidy kind of quiet in a city that never really sleeps. Our apartment sat above a bakery in Lincoln Square. In the mornings, the smell of cinnamon knots drifted through our thin windows. You could feel the day waking up before your eyes even opened. The hallway radiator hissed like it had stories to tell, and the floors creaked in that knowing way, like the building had seen everything and survived it all. Daniel moved in with 2 duffel bags, a baseball mitt, and a coffee mug that read, "World's okayest cook." He was an engineer, sturdy, cheerful, the kind of guy who hung his Cubs hat from the doorknob. Calm, narrow eyes that lit up when the Bears won or when his pasta came out just right. He shook my hand at the lease signing, firm, easy, and said, "I'm pretty simple, dude. Work a lot, sleep, gym, call my mom on Sundays." We wrote our names on the mailbox in block letters. 2 names, 1 home, a promise to be decent to each other. Our first grocery run was cautious. You learn a lot about a person from their approach to avocados and cereal. He went straight for plain Cheerios and the ripest avocado in the bin. Efficient, optimistic. I admired that. I kept my coffee mugs on the second shelf and watered the plants my sister swore were unkillable. When you live with someone new, you form a quiet agreement. You learn to share the same small universe, to listen for the cabinet doors, the footsteps, the sigh before the shower. You adjust. You breathe. You hope for kindness. That first night, we sat at our wobbly kitchen table and made rules. No loud music after 10, label your leftovers, and don't talk to the landlord unless you're in a good mood. He pointed at the stove burner like it had personally offended him and said, "And if it goes whoosh when it shouldn't, we call someone. Some rules are written, some are not. Here's one of the unspoken ones. You tell the basics of your story, but some parts stay folded like old letters in a drawer." I was out, to my friends, my sister Lisa, most of my co-workers at the hospital. That truth was part of my day, like my badge, my stethoscope, and the pen I always lost. But with new men, especially the kind who half-joke that they're aggressively straight, I usually waited. I didn't lie, I just waited. Editing our lives is something many of us do when we're not sure yet if the listener can hold the truth with care. If you're listening now and you've done this, I want you to hear me clearly. It's not a flaw. It's a survival skill. A bridge you build when the river's high. Daniel flipped through a takeout menu and said, "You're at Northwestern, right? Med-surgical?" "Yeah," I said, tracing the ring of a water glass. "Long shifts, good people, plenty of coffee." He smiled. "Good, I go to bed early. I won't see you much on weekdays then." We clinked chopsticks and agreed to split dumplings. I told him about my sister's bike crash last summer. He told me about tearing his ACL in high school. We traded those small medical scars like baseball cards. I could see the good in him. You can always tell when someone's been trained by life to hold things gently. There's a rhythm to roommates that, when it works, settles the nervous system. Daniel showered at 6:15. I brewed coffee at 6:45. He liked his eggs firm. I liked mine soft. He washed dishes like he was negotiating a truce. I folded laundry like I'd taken a class. In the evenings, we passed each other like trains on parallel tracks, him coming in, gym bag swinging, Me heading out, lanyard bouncing against the door frame. On Fridays, we sometimes watched a game. Baseball for him, anything with a plot for me. He'd narrate how the pitcher held the seams. I'd explain the philosophy of good character arcs. It was easy. It was safe. The city outside our windows could be loud and complicated, but our little kitchen stayed calm. Sometimes we don't realize how much safety we crave until it arrives, quietly, in humble, everyday ways. Let's talk about the moment. It wasn't dramatic. It was small, the way a heart murmur can be small and still change everything. Late March. Snow not quite done with us yet. I'd left my phone on the coffee table. Screen up while I ran downstairs to grab laundry before someone mistook my scrubs for free. Daniel was at the sink, scrubbing a pan like it had personally wronged him. When I came back, he had that stillness people get when they're processing something. He cleared his throat. Hey, your phone lit up. I wasn't snooping. My eyes just went there. I set the basket down. My heart miscounted a beat. Okay, he pointed toward the table. It said, "Call me when you're home, love." Evan. He paused. Who's Evan? If your stomach just dropped hearing that, take one breath with me. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 6. I learned that from an older nurse who used to rest her hand on my shoulder before tough conversations and whisper, "Steady now." I met his eyes. Someone I'm seeing. He nodded slowly. A lot lived in that nod. His face softened, then tightened, then softened again, like weather moving through. Okay. I didn't know. I know, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. I should have told you. I swallowed. New roommate. New space. I wanted to feel it out first. He leaned his hip against the counter and stared at the pan. I get that, he said quietly. We sat at the kitchen table with the dumpling menu between us like a peace treaty. He chewed on his thumbnail. I don't have a problem, he said, voice careful. I've had friends who are gay. I've been to a pride thing. I'm not weird about it, I half smiled. Okay. I think I'm just more surprised you didn't tell me, he admitted. He wasn't accusing. He sounded like someone who just realized the book he loved had a chapter he hadn't read yet. I was worried, I said. You're easy to live with. I've had roommates who weren't. It's exhausting having to teach someone how not to be cruel. He looked up fast. I'm not going to be cruel to you. I know, I said softly. You've been kind from day one. But fear isn't rational. It just knocks and knocks, he nodded, eyes steady. What do you need from me? If you live long enough, you learn how to answer that question. But early on, most of us are rusty, so I took it slow. I need to know you won't bring people here who make jokes about me. I need to know that if something confuses you, you'll ask instead of assuming, and I need to know that Evan is safe to visit. Daniel stared at the menu, then set it aside. Okay, he said. Those are easy yeses. Thank you. And then, almost shyly, he added, if I say the wrong thing sometimes, please tell me. I'll learn. There it was, humility. A bridge offered in both directions. We ordered dinner. We ate. We talked about the Cubs and a book my sister had mailed me. Not everything has to be sorted in one night. There's a rhythm to healing and to change. It can be gentle. It wasn't lightning. It was a dimmer switch. We kept living. But now there was air moving through a window we'd never opened. Daniel asked thoughtful questions. Not quizzes, not intrusions. Curiosities with respect braided in. Is it annoying when people say, I never would have guessed? What's your favorite pride memory? What do I do if someone says something dumb to you at a party? I answered honestly. Sometimes you already know. Sometimes, thank you for asking. When Evan came by, Daniel shook his hand in that solid Midwestern way, the kind that says, mean it, or don't bother. They talked about the Bulls for 5 minutes, laughed about the landlord's terrible caulking job, and I watched a new pathway form between two men who might never have met otherwise. A small miracle we don't applaud enough. Decent men choosing to be kinder. But it wasn't just Daniel who changed. I changed too. Fear eases when it's met with patience. I stopped editing so much. I stopped skipping pronouns and stories. I hung a small pride flag magnet on the fridge. He noticed it that evening and grinned. Looks good there. Yeah, I said. I think it does. Not long after, we went to a neighborhood bar to catch a game. The place had too many TVs and not enough napkins. A group of guys at the next table yelled at the screen like it owed them money. One leaned over and asked who we were rooting for. I said casually, I'm pulling for the pitcher. Evan likes him. He made a face and muttered something about soft under his breath. Before I could even open my mouth, Daniel turned, friendly but firm. Come on. Man, he said. Don't be that guy. We're just watching baseball. He held the moment with a steady gaze. Not a flex, just a clear boundary. The guy shrugged, looked away, found another target. Daniel turned back to his beer, then to me. You okay? Yeah, I said. And I was. I didn't need him to rescue me, but I appreciated that he stepped toward me, not away. That evening, the air felt lighter. We walked home under the L tracks and talked about pitching rotations. Sometimes, allyship looks exactly like that. Unglamorous, simple. Consistent June in Chicago is a long exhale after a winter that never seems to leave. I asked Daniel if he wanted to come to Pride. It's crowded, I warned, smiling. It's loud. There's glitter in places you'll never get it out of, he laughed. I have a lint roller. Let's go. We went with my sister Lisa and her wife. Mia? Daniel carried sunscreen like a champ and handed out water bottles. At one point, an older couple walked by, 2 men in their 70s, hands threaded, wearing matching shirts with tiny embroidered hearts. They were laughing, heads tipped together like the years had taught them where to find the sweetest light. Daniel watched them pass and exhaled softly, like someone had opened a door he didn't know was there. He fell in step beside me, not touching, not crowding, just present. That's what I remember most. He didn't try to be the center. He let the day be what it was. Joy, survival, chosen family, the sacred right to exist loudly. And still, he was there with me. Later, as the sun leaned west, we sat on the curb and ate street tacos wrapped in foil. Thanks for inviting me, he said. It sounds silly, but I feel proud of you. I looked at him quietly, surprised by the warmth in my chest. Thank you. He turned back to the parade, half talking to himself. I like the way today feels. Summer storms in the Midwest are honest. No guessing. Just a warning wind, then rain like glass, and finally, the slow drum roll subsiding. That night, the power flickered and went out. We lit a candle in the living room and sat on the floor like kids at camp. The city softened. When things get quiet, other things rise to the surface. He asked, voice barely above the rain, Do you ever get tired of explaining yourself? I smiled at the ceiling. I get tired of proving I deserve the same ease other people are handed. But conversations like the ones we've had, no, those are oxygen, he nodded. The candlelight threw soft shadows across his face. He looked a little like a kid in a fort. Sometimes, he said carefully, I don't know what I'm feeling until I say it out loud. That's a normal part of being human, I said, and I meant it. There's no hurry. There's just honesty and kindness. He was quiet for a long moment. The rain eased. I think I'm noticing things, he said finally. About you. About me around you. I don't have a label for it. It just feels safe. Good. I listen to my own heartbeat. There are moments when life asks you to be brave in a very particular way, to be open without losing yourself. I appreciate you telling me, I said softly. We don't have to name anything tonight. We can let it be true and unfinished, he laughed once, breathy. True and unfinished, he repeated. I like that. We sat there, 2 people, 1 candle, a city humming around us. He reached over slowly, like approaching a skittish bird, and took my hand. It wasn't charged. It wasn't cinematic. It was simpler, deeper. This is my hand. I'd like you to hold it. So I did. The next morning, we made pancakes. He burned the first one. I salvaged the second. We moved around each other like people who had learned a new dance step overnight and didn't want to stomp on toes. He cleared his throat. About last night, he said. I meant what I said, but I also don't want to hurt me. I finished gently. Yeah. Relief softened his voice. I don't want you to feel like I'm experimenting with your heart. I plated a pancake and slid it toward him. Thank you for saying that. I won't be a secret. I won't be a curiosity. And I won't be your proof of something to anyone else. If you want to explore what you're feeling, we can, but slowly and kindly. Or we can just stay friends and roommates. Both are honorable. He took a breath. I want to try the honest way. He looked at the pancake, then back at me. And I need to break up with Brittany. I'd known about Brittany. She was kind, smart, and unbeatable at trivia nights. They'd been together on and off for years. You do, I said gently. Because she deserves honesty, too, he nodded. I'll call her today, and I'll be kind. He made the call in his bedroom with the door closed. I went for a walk along the brownstone-lined streets, counting the planters spilling over with red geraniums. When I came back, his face had that clean, quiet sadness people wear after telling the truth and losing something because of it. He sat on the couch, elbows on his knees. She cried, he said softly. I did too. I'm sorry, I told him. I told her I didn't have all my words yet, he added. But I knew this much. Holding on would be unfair. That's the right thing, I said. Hard, but right. He looked at me then, eyes damp, mouth tilted in a half-smile that didn't quite hold. I didn't expect to feel grief about the future I thought I was headed toward. I sat beside him. It's normal to mourn a map, I said. Even if the road it promised wouldn't have led you home. We sat in silence for a while, sharing the couch, sharing air. He didn't reach for me, and I didn't reach for him. We were careful. And care by itself can be a kind of love. If you've lived in a building long enough, there's always a neighbor who knows everything, and somehow, what matters most. Ours was Mrs. Alvarez, a retired teacher with a cookie tin that never ran empty. She had a way of reading your face and offering exactly what you needed, usually an oatmeal raisin cookie and the words, sit, start wherever you want. One afternoon, she knocked on our door, handed us 2 foil-wrapped parcels and said, I'm going to my niece's, eat these, or I'll be offended. Then she lingered a moment, eyes kind. You boys look out for each other? We do, Daniel said, his voice steady. Lisa came over the next weekend. She hugged me for a long time. She hugged Daniel too, a little longer, and then whispered, Remember, the best people don't rush good things. We told our circle of friends slowly. Josh clapped Daniel on the shoulder and said, Love is love, man. Also, you're still making wings on Sunday, right? Later, Priya texted me. I like how he looks at you when you talk, like the world is saying something worth hearing, but not every day after a confession is an easy one. About 2 weeks later, Daniel came home quiet and stayed that way. He moved through rooms like the air had turned heavy. That night he said, Can we talk? We sat at the kitchen table, the place where truth always seems to land, and he exhaled. I think I'm scared that I'm just lonely, he said finally. That I'm mixing up gratitude and affection? And you, I nodded. Thank you for saying that now, before it grows on its own. That's what honesty looks like. I don't want to hurt you, he said again. We can pause, I offered. Let this breathe. Maybe talk to someone who can help you find the right words for what's real. Like a therapist? He asked. Like a therapist, I said, smiling gently. There's a community center nearby. Good people, sliding scale. He looked down at his hands, thinking. Pause isn't the opposite of progress. It's how we catch up to ourselves. If you need that reminder today, take it. There's real courage in choosing the right speed. Daniel started seeing a counselor, once a week, sometimes twice. He'd come home a little wrung out, but a little lighter each time. One evening, he sat on the couch and said quietly, I don't know why it took until I was 31 to realize there's more than 2 boxes. But it's like someone opened a window in a room I've lived in my whole life. and now I'm finally breathing different. Breathing is step one, I said, smiling. He swallowed, nervous but steady. I think the word I want is bisexual. We let the word hang in the air for a moment. He didn't flinch. Neither did I. Welcome, I said softly. You're not late. You're not early. You're right on time, for you! His eyes shimmered. I want to keep going with us, he said. Slowly, kindly, and with a lot of consent. And a lot of check-ins. And a lot of pancakes, I teased. Deal, he said. We were in the kitchen, cleaning up. He handed me a towel and the gesture slowed, like film in a museum exhibit. Can I kiss you? He asked, not should I? Not, I'm going to. A question, which is another way of saying I see you. You're a person, not a solution. Yes, I said. The kiss was gentle, brief. It didn't ask me to be anything other than myself. When he pulled back, he laughed softly, a hand over his chest, surprised, like his heart had just learned a new language. Okay, he whispered. Okay, I echoed. Then we finished the dishes. Here's something I want to offer anyone listening, especially those raised to ignore the practical parts of love. Love is made of moments, yes, but it's held together by gentle logistics. We talked about boundaries. We decided not to tell the whole world right away, only the people who would care for the news. No grand announcements, just small, true ones. We talked about the apartment, whether to move the couch, or maybe just the lines around it. We agreed not to treat our home like a secret, but we'd keep our affection where we kept our quiet. We wouldn't perform it. We'd simply live it. We told the landlord nothing, mostly because he could barely keep track of the sinks. We told Mrs. Alvarez, of course. She already knew. And she baked lemon bars anyway, the powdered sugar dusting our fingers like snow. Then one afternoon, my mom called from Milwaukee. Honey, I don't want to worry you, she said. I was standing in the cereal aisle, debating between the brand that tasted like cardboard and the one that tasted like sugared cardboard. I took a breath. Tell me. Shortness of breath, she admitted. They're admitting me for observation. By the time she finished her sentence, I was already walking back toward the apartment. I'm on my way, I said. Daniel didn't ask if he should come. He just said, I'll drive. 10 minutes later, we were on I-94. The skyline shrinking in the mirror, Lake Michigan a deep gray to our right. He didn't fill the silence with chatter. He just kept his hand near the console, palm up, a quiet offer of comfort, and when I needed it, I rested my hand in his. At the hospital, he found coffee for me, and a crossword for himself, the way good people hold space without demanding it, the way good people occupy space without demanding it. He talked to the nurse at the counter like she was his favorite cousin, and he nodded respectfully to the attending doctor who explained the tests. He never once made it about him. If you've ever sat in a hospital hallway at 3 a.m, you know how easy it is to fall a little in love with someone who knows how to stay steady under fluorescent light. Mom was okay, just a medication adjustment and a firm reminder to monitor her fluids. As we left, she squeezed Daniel's hand and said, You're a good one. Don't let this city convince you you're not. On the drive home, the sun came up in pale gold slats across the road. Daniel glanced over at me. You do that for a living, he said, his voice soft with admiration. You stand in rooms like that and help people breathe. I try, I said. He took a slow breath. Then I'll try with you. The weeks after that were both ordinary and holy. We tried a new pasta sauce and burned the garlic. We walked along the lake with coffees that cooled too fast. We argued once about whether the couch should face the window or the TV. We didn't make everything about identity. We just lived. Still, sometimes doubt dropped by like a relative who never calls first. One night, Daniel said quietly, I keep wondering what my dad will think. What do you think? I asked. He rubbed his jaw. I keep hearing his voice in my head, but maybe it's just mine pretending to be his. I don't know. I'll call him when I'm ready. Take your time, I said. Let's focus on how we treat each other and let the rest fall into place. It's tempting to build our lives around what others might think, but joy can't breathe in a room like that. We kept choosing us. We let the rest come when it came. 3 months later, Brittany texted Daniel and asked if they could talk. They met for coffee in a quiet shop with a ficus that had probably been there longer than any barista. When he got home, he stood by the window, shoulders a little slouched, the way people look after a tender conversation. "She's okay," he said. "She told me she knew I was figuring something out before I did. She hopes we both find what we're looking for." "I'm glad," I said softly. "I hope she does too." He looked at me with those steady, thoughtful eyes and added, "She said to tell you to be patient with me." "I can do that," I said. We adopted a dog, not because love needs a mascot, but because the apartment needed more life. At a shelter on the south side, we met a mutt with one ear that wouldn't behave and a tail that wagged like a live wire. His intake name was Morton, which felt too heavy for 8 pounds of pure determination. We called him Mo. Mo slept in a donut bed under the window and woke us at 6 for brisk walks that forced us to admire the morning. He loved everyone, disliked the vacuum, and learned to sit before he learned to stop stealing socks. He was a reminder that care is daily, often silly, and that joy can thunder through a room in a body barely bigger than a kettle. Mrs. Alvarez brought over homemade treats shaped like bones and said, "All right, now it's a home." That November, we drove to Ohio for Thanksgiving. Daniel's parents lived in a tidy house with a mailbox shaped like a cardinal. His mom, Ruth, made cranberry relish that deserved its own fan club. His dad, Dave, had a way of standing in doorways like a referee, one hand on the frame, measuring the room. We didn't make a speech. We didn't need to. The way Daniel touched my shoulder when he passed the gravy, and the way my hand found his wrist under the table when one of his jokes didn't land, that told the story. Later that night, Dave asked Daniel to help him take out the trash bins. I watched from the kitchen window, drying my hands on a towel I didn't trust not to betray me with lint. They talked. It wasn't heated. It was quiet, slow, careful. When Daniel came back in, his jaw was set, but his eyes were clear. He said he was surprised. Daniel said he wants me to be happy. He admitted he doesn't fully understand yet, but he'll try not to say the wrong things while he learns. Ruth pulled me into a hug that smelled like sage and told me to take seconds. Trying is a kind of love language. So I took more cranberry relish. If you've ever held on to something hard and beautiful, you know the secret is found in ordinary Wednesdays. We built a life around Wednesdays. Groceries, laundry, and a show we both liked but always watched too slowly because we kept pausing to talk about the lines. We traded off who took Mo out in the rain. We celebrated tiny victories, a good meeting for Daniel, a patient who smiled at me after a long night. We cleaned the baseboards like they'd personally offended us. We made lists and crossed things off. Every so often we'd end up back in that same kitchen, at the same table, saying the quiet magic words that hold a home together. "What do you need?" "Thank you." "I'm sorry." "I'm listening." The landlord slid our renewal under the door with a sticky note that said, "Please sign neatly." We sat on the floor, looking at it like it was an old friend wearing a new shirt. "This feels different from last year," Daniel said. "It is different," I replied. "We were strangers then. We're us now. We signed our names. 2 names, 1 line of ink. It wasn't a wedding. It wasn't a declaration to the world. It was a promise to each other that we wanted another year of this ordinary miracle we'd made. We went out for pie to celebrate. The waitress called me honey and topped off our coffee like she'd always known who we were. When my straight roommate found out I was gay, everything changed. And by everything, I mean this. The tone in our apartment softened. The rhythms became kinder. The questions grew gentler, and the jokes got smarter. The world uncurled a little, like a cat deciding to trust your lap. But let me be honest, what didn't change matters too. The rent stayed the same. The weather still shifted. People still said awkward things in bars. Love still required practice. And that practice was humbling, sometimes funny, sometimes uncomfortable. Boundaries didn't disappear. They grew stronger. Everything changed because the truth was finally allowed to take up its rightful space, and the people around it simply adjusted the furniture. That's the work. That's the gift. It doesn't need confetti. It needs courage and gentle hands. One evening in late spring, when the tulips were bursting from the ground like small fireworks, we walked along the lake. The water looked like an idea you hadn't named yet. Mo trotted between us, nose up, convinced every jogger was a long-lost cousin. Daniel's hand found mine, homesick and sure. He squeezed once. "I got an email today," he said. "My counselor's moving on. He told me you've got what you need." "How do you feel?" I asked. "Grateful," he said, and ready to keep practicing. We stopped at the end of the pier. The city rose around us on all glass and hope. He turned to me and said, "I can't promise I'll always be brave on the first try, but I promise I'll keep trying. With you." I leaned into him, forehead to temple, like I wanted the world to hear in case the wind was listening. "Me too," I said. "If you're here because you're about to tell someone you love the truth of who you are, let me offer a few things. As someone who stood in fluorescent hallways and dim kitchens and knows how both kinds of light can be kind, pick a time when no one's rushing. A body in a hurry can't listen well. Ask for what you need, clearly. Ask questions, not assumptions. Be gentle if they stumble. Take pauses when you need them. And if you're the one hearing the truth, you don't need perfect words, just the right posture. Curious, humble, steady. Make room for second drafts. People rarely say it perfectly the first time. Protect each other in public. There's no prize for letting a stranger be cruel. Therapy isn't a failure of love. It's a way to make love stronger. Ordinary Wednesdays build empires. Do the dishes. Refill the coffee. Walk the dog in the rain. We end where we began, in the kitchen. Not fancy. Not staged. A bowl of oranges. A fridge with a magnet that catches the afternoon light. A small dog who thinks every sound is about him. Daniel's making eggs. I'm burning the toast, as always. He looks over and grins. "Can you pass me the pepper?" he asks. I hand it to him. My hand lingers on his wrist. He leans in and kisses my forehead. It's not dramatic, and it's exactly the size of our life. "What do you want to do today?" he says. I think about the city outside our door, and the one we've built inside our walls. "Let's go get coffee," I say. "Maybe wander over to the bookstore, then come home and take a nap." He laughs. "Perfect. Some loves make you run. Some make you rest. The best ones teach you when to do which. If we're lucky, we don't get just one version of ourselves, we get many. And we learn to set the table for each one with patience." When Daniel found out I was gay, he didn't make the room smaller. He made it bigger. He didn't turn me into his teacher, his trophy, or his excuse. He made me his person, one ordinary Wednesday at a time. And yes, he was straight when I met him, or he thought he was. The way we name ourselves matters. So does the grace to rename. He found a word that fit better. The way you put on a jacket and realize it's the first one that keeps you warm where you actually need it. Bisexual. A good, sturdy word. It didn't erase who he had been. It explained him to himself more kindly. We kept changing because life keeps teaching. We listened. We rearranged the furniture in our hearts so the truth wouldn't bump its shin on the way to the couch. We learned that you can be careful and brave at the same time, and that you can love a city, a person, a dog, and a kitchen table so much that even passing the pepper feels like a promise. I'll end with this. For anyone who needs the doctorly kind of calm we all crave sometimes, breathe in, hold, breathe out. Put one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Feel the body you live in. It's done so much for you. It will keep doing that. You are allowed to tell the truth about who you are. You are allowed to be surprised by love. You are allowed to be patient. You are allowed to be brave. You are allowed to need help. You are allowed to say, "I'm not ready," and later, "Now I am." You are allowed to want a life that is both ordinary and holy, and if you're listening as the person who just learned something life-sized about someone you love, thank you for still being here. Your steadiness can be the bridge someone else uses to make it safely across the river.